The Marshall City Council meeting for Monday, July 20, 2020. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Karen,
Here.
Councilmember Gates,
Here.
Councilmember McNeil,
Here.
Councilmember Metzger,
Here.
Councilmember Traver.
Here.
Councilmember Underhill,
Here.
Councilmember Wolfersberger.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. This evening, the invocation will be by Scott Willicat from Grace Baptist Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Should be joining us here in a second.
Thank you.
It looks like you're unmuted, right? Oh, there you go. You should be good now.
Yeah, can you hear me? You can hear me now, gentlemen and ladies?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yes. My name is Scott Willicat. I'm associate pastor at Grace Baptist. Thanks for allowing me to pray in Pastor Crawford's stead. So let's pray together. Kind and gracious Father, you are the King of all creation and the author of all good. You are the giver of life, health, strength, earthly blessing, and eternal life. You minister righteousness and justice. You are compassionate and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in love. You sent your Son to die as our substitute, and on the cross he bore our sin, guilt, and shame. You poured upon him the full cup of your wrath, and we now have access to complete forgiveness if we bow before him in repentant faith. You are worthy of all honor, glory, adoration, and blessing. In infinite wisdom, you planned all things, and in sovereign power, you accomplish all that you have planned. There are many who deny you, and many who resist you, but none can thwart you. We therefore humbly bow before you this evening. Tonight we pray your blessing on the city of Marshall and on those who seek to establish its direction and care for its citizens. Please grant this body uncommon honesty, integrity, humility, and transparency. We know from the scripture that human government in all of its workings is your servant for good in the world. And therefore we pray that each decision made by this body will be founded upon a proper fear of you and a genuine love for the people of our city. Grant each member the wisdom to understand what is right and the courage to stand for what is right. We ask all this in the name of Jesus Christ, the Savior of sinners. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
Of the
States
United States,
and to the republic for which it
for
stands,
which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Nice going, Michael.
Next, we have the approval of agenda, starting with item 6, candidates for public office, followed by public comment on agenda items, followed by the consent agenda. Under reports and recommendations, 13A, we have the street improvement bond proposal. 13B, we have the motor pool purchases. 13C, we have the electric vehicle charging stations. 13D, we have creation of the Marshall Social District, followed by public comment on non-agenda items and council and manager communications. At this time, I would like to add the South Central Power Agency bill to the consent agenda in the amount of $713,973.07 for a total of $1,061,049.48. Any questions, comments, additions, or deletions to the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
We have a motion by member Metzger, support by member Wolfersberger. Do a roll call vote, please.
Member Gates,
Yes.
Member McNeil,
Yes.
Member Metzger,
Yes.
Member Traver.
Yes.
Member Underhill,
Yes.
Member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Karen.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have any candidates for public office wishing to speak. Now is the time, and I see that Peter Meyer has joined us this evening. So if you would like to get started.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Well, first of all, I just wanted to thank the pastor for that beautiful invocation, and you all for letting me join tonight. My name is Peter Meyer. I'm a Republican running for Congress here in the 3rd Congressional District, which includes much of West Michigan, including all of Calhoun County. And I see a lot of familiar faces on the Zoom tonight, and just want to thank those that I was able to meet with last week during our tour of Marshall. It was really a wonderful day, a great lunch at Schuler's. I had a chance to swing by the American Museum of Magic too, which was a nice little gem, but really came to have a fond appreciation for Marshall. So one of the things that I talked about and that I'm very passionate about is the opportunity for our representative in Congress to not just be looking at pieces of federal legislation and items dealing with constituent relations with the federal government more broadly, but also have an opportunity to be a community leader, to take advantage of that convening power, take advantage of that ability to, connect communities within the region, connect townships, try to overcome some of the obstacles and issues that our municipalities, our townships, and our counties are facing. So I'm very excited, for this chance to kind of speak. And I guess I'll share a little bit more about myself, or whoever you think is most appropriate. Tom, do you want me to, any set agenda or just an opportunity to share?
Well, as I mentioned to JJ, this is your time, so feel free to share with the group, and you've got quite a bit of audience also you don't see on the screen.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I guess I'll just talk about some of the things that kind of I learned in Marshall and things where I think we have a real opportunity to be promoting solutions. One of the big things I had the chance to visit the regional law enforcement center there, to talk with the Calhoun County Sheriff and see some of just that integration between municipal and county and state and federal resources, which I think is really effective. I know that the Calhoun County Sheriff's Office is really proud of the accreditation process that they've been going through. The Battle Creek Chief of Police also went through that process recently as well. And that's something that I haven't heard much in kind of our jumbled debates around, how to move forward after the George Floyd protests, and ensure that our police officers and our law enforcement are building strong trust in the community. That accreditation process that, promotes a very high standard, but also, helps those law enforcement agencies convey, that same degree and that same, rigid professionalism. I think there's really an opportunity for for the federal government to potentially, assist other law enforcement agencies and police departments and sheriff's departments that are looking for that accreditation, that want to kind of create a stronger degree of accountability within their services. And so I'm excited. I'm not only excited to see the great work that's already being done in Calhoun, but also the opportunity to take some of that work, take some of those lessons learned to help other police departments and other sheriff's departments throughout West Michigan, reach that same kind of pinnacle of excellence. The other thing that I was impressed upon was, some of the issues, not necessarily just in the city of Marshall, but well, specifically within the city of Marshall, the need for greater economic development and a lot of the potential at that intersection of the 69 and 94 corridor. So some very impressive economic development that's already been going on, but also the challenges of dealing with some of the regulatory authority, especially on the environmental permitting, and just the need to streamline those approval processes. The federal government and our kind of regulators, they have a job, but the job shouldn't be to drag out approvals unnecessarily, to put roadblocks up where there really shouldn't be any, and really just kind of stymie and frustrate processes that are already ongoing. So every opportunity we can have to streamline that permitting, to ensure that our regulation is not standing in the way of economic development, I think is also a real opportunity for us going forward. And some things that are a little bit more personal to myself, but also impact Calhoun County. I have a background in the military. I served with the Army in Iraq. I spent a number of years in Afghanistan as well as a conflict analyst, though not for the government. But rebalancing our national security and making sure that West Michigan and specifically Calhoun County with Fort Custer aren't being left out of the conversation when it comes to defense appropriations, when it comes to investments, and some of the large projects going forward, whether that was kind of the missile defense conversation from last year and the year before, or opportunities for greater drone research. I think Calhoun County has a lot of latent industrial capacity and research and development ability, and I'd really love to see that brought to the fore. So those are just a couple of the things that I learned and want to talk about. But I understood from my conversations in Marshall that especially with a seat that is kind of centered around Grand Rapids from a population standpoint, wanting to make sure that Calhoun is very closely included, because I think there is a lot of shared economic opportunity. And frankly, it's important that every part of the district deserves strong representation, and that's what I'm running to provide. So I want to thank you all for allowing me to speak tonight. If it's appropriate, I'm happy to take questions, or I'm just happy to be here.
Peter, thank you for joining us this evening and for making the trip down to Marshall last week. It was great to meet you, and I appreciate you taking the time to come down to our part of the district and just see what we have to offer. So does anyone have any questions for Peter at this time? All right, hearing none, we have all your contact information. We'll get that out to the council, and if anyone has any comments, we'll direct it that way. But thanks for joining us this evening, and it's nice to see you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Jen Rice is next up.
Okay, thank you, Jen, whenever you're ready.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
We can.
All right, I got a spiel. You ready? Good evening, Mayor, Karen, and council members. My name is Jen Rice, 516 West Hanover Street, and I am pleased to announce my intent to run for the Ward 4 seat on Marshall's City Council this fall. I have lived in Marshall for 8 years and work in our community as the Calhoun County Fairgrounds General Manager. I am a member of the Marshall Rotary Club, the Marshall Lions Club, and the Calhoun County Planning Commission. I am also a certified tourism ambassador with the Calhoun County Visitors Bureau. If elected to City Council, I will work towards the following goals: continued support of our law enforcement and county emergency management departments, continued service to the community by participating on boards and committees and actively listening to residents and businesses while expressing their concerns. Jobs are the driving force for everything in our community. I will support the creation of new programs and projects that will continue to attract young people to live, work, and raise their families in the city of Marshall, including our strong healthcare systems, Oaklawn Hospital, and the Marshall Public Schools. I will support MEDA in their efforts to promote economic development, provide small business support, and increase tourism. I will continue to support and promote our locally owned businesses that set our small town apart and contribute to our unique quality of life. Through my work with the fairgrounds, the largest event venue in Calhoun County, I will continue to create new events that will spur Marshall's development and growth, seeking to ever increase the 300,000 people who attended our events last year, bringing in over $500,000 to our local businesses. I love our town and the people who reside here, and I look forward to representing the City of Marshall's Ward 4 residents following Michael McNeil's tenure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for joining us tonight, Jen. Does anyone
Thanks,
have
Jen.
questions for Jen while she's still here with us? Excellent. Hearing none, we appreciate you joining us and wish you best of luck.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Any other candidates this evening for public office?
I don't have anybody else right now, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Seeing none, we will move on to public comment on agenda items. Anyone wishing to address the council may do so, speaking their name and address, and have a maximum of 5 minutes to speak. I believe Kathy Miller was going to be first up for agenda items.
And then I have Karen Drenth and then Pam Wolfersberger after that.
Kathy, please go ahead whenever you're ready.
Kathy, you need to unmute.
There I am, okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, Kathy Miller, 540 Cosmopolitan. I was really excited seeing the agenda that we're looking at a social district for Marshall. One of the things that I guess I'm hoping that you're thinking of, I noticed most of it was on the south side, but we do have businesses on the other side of the road there. OBX, Mike's Place, Marshall Pizza, Pastrami Joe's, Oy Amigos, Mancino's, and to name just a few. While the alley, one of the considerations was the alleyways, I'm not sure that as far as I'm concerned, that's going to give a good presentation. And I'm wondering why maybe part of the parking lot on both sides of Michigan Avenue behind the buildings would not be considered as a place for a social area for these restaurants. Summer is half over with, and if we don't move quickly, we won't be able to even help them out. And I'd like to see this brought to a conclusion as soon as possible. I see the resolution allows for the planning of it, but it's not coming to fruition probably for another 3-4 weeks. So the faster the committee can work on it, and I think the restaurant owners in particular, we can get it done. I hate to see them go much longer without being able to work with the city and MEDA to make extra dining spaces. I noticed there was a crowd down at Grand River this last weekend, and I would like to see that being able to handle that for some of the other businesses downtown. I wish our movie theater would open up too, but that's not going to happen for a while. I'm encouraging the committee that's going to be working on this to get the input and see if we can't work both sides of the road here. And once again, I don't think the parking lots are outside the realm of having it, because we're not getting that many cars down there at night. I've driven around at night just to see on the weekends. So that's my 2 cents for whatever it's worth, but I'm glad you're addressing it. Just take a look at some of the cities in Michigan, by the way, that have done things, and very experimental things that are turning out good. So good luck, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. I know there's a lot of discussion that will be had regarding that, and we certainly want to do something as quickly as possible so we can help support these local businesses.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next up, we have Karen Drenth.
Hello, everyone. Karen Drenth, 602 Laura Lane here in Marshall, and also a member of the MEDA board and former board chair for MEDA. I also wanted to comment on the creation of the Marshall Social District. As you're probably aware, MEDA did conduct a poll about the use of a variety of spaces in the Marshall community for expansion for both retail and restaurant use due to the limited capacities that both are experiencing right now. And the use of alleys on both sides of Michigan Ave had the highest level of support amongst restaurants and retailers that respond to the survey, well over 90%. So I was happy to see it was on the agenda. In addition to the reduced capacity issues, there are a variety of other reasons I feel like these alleys are a great project for the City Council to consider. One is it gives us something new to use to promote Marshall. I know my news feed on Facebook, and I'm sure several of you have seen this as well, is full of these beautiful outdoor spaces that people have reclaimed to use for outdoor dining and shopping. And this would be something that Marshall could point to as something new and different, another reason to visit Marshall. Our tourism traffic is down significantly, and we could use a boost in terms of some PR. Also, I think we would all agree that our alleys are not necessarily very attractive. So this would give us a chance to do some improvement of those spaces that would give value in the future as well, not just during these pandemic times. It's also an opportunity to do some artist funding. We could assist local artists who have lost ability to sell at things like art fairs and other events, all being canceled during the pandemic. And again, beautifying those areas. Main Street, that repaving process will be continuing in August. And this crippled a lot of our businesses last year. It was necessary, but it had a dramatic decrease of business for all of our downtown businesses. So this would be a way to create a welcoming back entrance area to make people still feel like they're welcome downtown, and to have them think about those surrounding parking lots as easy ways to get in for eating and dining and shopping. I would also mention that a lot of retailers already signed up as interested. And if you have ever seen pictures or attended any outdoor markets in Europe, you always see things like books, and our bookstore is one of the parties that's very interested in participating. So I would hope that you would contemplate that as you look at the North Alley as well. Living Michigan and Green Scene have also expressed some interest over there. I also want to point out that we're interviewing right now for replacement CEO candidates, a variety of candidates for MEDA. And every single one of them pointed to our vibrant downtown as a benefit, not only for tourism, but also for economic development. So we have to really do all we can as urgently and quickly as possible to support those downtown businesses. The PPP loans have been used up at this point. So people are really at the point now where they need that revenue to come back at a level that'll support their businesses, or we're gonna see a lot of empty storefronts. And that keeping an existing retailer or restaurant is way easier than recruiting a new one. I heard some concern about moving about the city, whether it be for the farmer's market or other things. One thing that I have to say is I'm thankful that we have so many different side streets and other ways to access parts of the city other than just the alleys. So I don't think this would restrict people or make people turn around if they weren't able to access things from an alley. Those are the main points I wanted to cover. If you have any questions for me about the survey or anything related to MEDA, I'd be more than happy to help answer those questions. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you for joining us this evening, Karen. We might have some more questions when we discuss the report. If you're able to stick around with us for that, that'd be helpful. Next up, we have Pam Wolfersberger.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'm Pam Wolfersberger, 911 Forest Street, Marshall, Michigan. I'm also the manager of the farmers market. One of my concerns was just having issues with traffic patterns and getting to the market. Just if that's something that's considered, especially with this starting to be our busy time at the market on Saturday mornings. Not only for produce, and we have fruit and everything else coming in, but just that we're kind of at the back of your minds that, you know, we are all in support of everything that is Marshall, and we want to make that very clear that we are Marshall, but we also want to be remembered that we are back in the back, and just not to be forgotten. Parking is sometimes an issue at this time. Getting people to and from is an issue, but I guess that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Pam. We will definitely keep that in mind when making our decisions and discussing this. All right, next we have Matt Davis joining us. Matt, please go ahead whenever you're ready.
And Matt, you show you're unmuted, but nobody can hear you at this point.
Maybe we should come back to Matt.
All right, Matt, we can see you now, but we still can't hear anything. We will come back to you in just a minute. I believe Teresa Cheney Huggett is also wanting to join us for public comment on agenda items.
Yeah, hi. Teresa Cheney Huggett from 625 West Green Street, also a candidate for council member representing Ward 4. I also wanted to talk about the social distance or district that's being considered. We can draw a lot of experience from Traverse City and some of the other cities in Michigan that are expanding their social distance areas in their downtowns, closing off streets and things for specific time periods. One of the big things is that some of them have done is allowing people to stroll and sip and shop all at the same time. So, you know, that's something that we may or may not want to consider, but it is a possibility, and that way it kind of supports everybody. So I just wanted to throw that out as a possibility that it's being used in other cities and successfully. So thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments, Teresa. We will go back to Matt. I think he's got it all set now. Matt, whenever you're ready.
Hold on. Should be coming back on right now. All right, I'm re-adding them again.
There, I can unmute myself now. Fabulous.
Great, we can hear you, Matt.
Okay, fantastic. Great to be with everybody tonight. I'm sorry about the technical glitches here. Seems to be a day for that. We had some CEO interviews this morning, and we got about
half hour late as we were dealing with trying to get all the Zoom to work correctly. So thank you for the grace. Pleasure to be here this evening to talk about the social districts and MEDA's involvement in that. As you may or may not know, Karen and I have kind of passed the baton. I'm the MEDA chairperson now beginning July 1st. She's worked very, very diligently on this, so I was super happy to hear her comments earlier and fully support the point of view that she's coming from. That is MEDA's point of view. We want to do everything we can to help our partners, and the city is one of our important partners, as you know, to come up with the best solution here for the businesses in a manner that supports our downtown. And it really was, I can't emphasize enough, one of the things that each and every CEO candidate brought to the table was that our vibrant downtown makes Marshall an incredibly attractive place for businesses to locate. And I think we've seen some fruit bear as a result of that, and some of the good things that have happened in the past few years. So the social district idea that we sort of have loosely fashioned, we're open to, I think I'm okay saying we're open to ideas on that for modifications if they make sense. I guess we're open to further discussion. We're open to moving very quickly. I know that was something that was expressed by Kathy very well. We certainly don't want to waste any more time at this point. Everybody's busy. We're busy. We're trying our best to move things along. We do have, some funding that we feel we can come up with dedicated to the improvement of the alleys with some overhead solar lighting, and also going to try to work with people to come up with, some alley beautification ideas and projects. Confining the social district to the parking lots is something that I mean, it's certainly something to consider, but I would say that might not be the best thing, because then I believe your restaurants would then need to somehow get their hospitality stuff to those confined areas. What we're really hoping to do is to set up a situation for, Fridays and Saturdays on into Sundays that allowed people to walk out of the pub door, for instance, or off of your back pub door, Joe, and to walk into the alley and to be able to browse down the alley all the way to Grand River at the other end, and truly have an experience where we can set up some seating for people. People can have sit down, talk to others, relax, and enjoy themselves. And confining it to a parking lot, I feel like it would lose some of its attractiveness if we did that on a couple of different fronts. So I just wanted to comment specifically on that and tell you, we're, again, from our point of view, MEDA, who will be providing funding to this and helping to organize it along with the city, we're willing to work with the city however we can to try to make something work that helps our downtown. Again, thank you very much for your time this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Matt, can I ask a quick
Thank
question?
you, Matt. Thank you for your
Of course.
What would be the funding aspects?
So one of the large funding aspects of this is actually the lighting. There's going to be several $1,000s in lighting upgrades that we would like to purchase, and think of stringed lights, that you see. Those things, while they're not terribly expensive, when you want to put up the amount that we would like to put up, they get fairly costly. And other fundings that we've talked about. Initially, this plan had this idea of having tables and chairs that MEDA would rent for the restaurants and for the businesses. We sort of discarded the idea of renting, and potentially would like to offer, and again, this is not set in stone yet, but potentially would like to offer the purchase of a couple of 6 or 8 foot tables, either round or rectangle, and some chairs for businesses who participate in this. Plus, we've got to figure we want some additional seating capacity there in terms of people just being, not necessarily being at, let's say, the Copper Bar. Maybe they're down, behind Karen's place, let's say, for instance, or the art gallery, and we could have some seating there that would allow them to, nobody wants to stand and talk for 2 or 3 hours. Well, maybe some people do, but I think you're going to find that if people can sit down and relax and sort of enjoy the outdoors, that it's going to be far more successful than if we are forcing everybody to stand and excluding people who are unable to stand for a period of time. So costs will come with that. If we provide tables and chairs to businesses who participate, costs will come, to that end. And then you have marketing. Can't do this, and then not push it, so to speak. We've got to have a marketing budget. Amy Crisp is ready to go with that. She's fantastic at marketing, done a great job with all the marketing that she's done, but marketing often isn't free. So we've got to have a budget and some dollars to be able to put there, and whatever other costs that may be associated that I'm not even thinking of right now. But we know there's going to be budget there. We think it's going to be somewhere in the $10,000 range. We think we can cover that for a startup cost, and then kind of play it by ear and see how it goes. And if it's successful, then that's wonderful, and we can look at other ways to either expand or capitalize on its success. Hope that answered your question, Nick.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. Just one final thing. You mentioned like 6 foot tables, whatever. Restaurants could also bring their own, correct? Or put their own out.
Of course. Absolutely.
And then keeping social distancing in mind, I wouldn't want to get tables too large where you get too many people sitting down.
Well, as long as the tables are managed in a manner that keeps people the proper distance away, which I think we're still at 6 feet. I'm not sure that it matters as long as it's there. But yes, they absolutely can provide their own tables. We're just saying, especially for the retail businesses as well. Obviously, it's a little bit of a different animal for food businesses, but for the retail businesses as well, we'll help as an organization to get you to buy in to participate in this. It will do nobody any good if people don't participate. And there has been a little bit of wait and see sort of attitude with it, and I understand that because these businesses are often run by the owners, and the owners are thinking, oh, now I got to staff something else, or I've got to hire somebody in, and I get all that. But in order for it to work, people have to participate. It's kind of a chicken or the egg thing. And when people are there, of course, people want to participate. But in order to get this thing off the ground, we really want people people being business owners to buy in and be a part of it.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask a question as well?
Yes, please do.
Okay, thanks. Hi, Matt. So my question was, first of all, I think this is a fantastic idea. I'm in favor of it. I think we need to get it rolling as quickly as possible. My question is, what was the rationale for limiting it to just that one alley as opposed to, say, draw a circle around the whole downtown and make the whole space a social district, and being able to, sort of window shop and stroll and sip your drink and
that would be what I would like.
Quite frankly, and Karen probably would like to respond to this as well. I think Karen still would like the North Alley and has been pushing for the North Alley all along. quite frankly, it was the city council's reaction at the last meeting that sort of brought us back when we sat down to look at it, that maybe we need to start smaller and grow. If the city council would like both alleys, we'll find a way to make that happen, and we'd love that.
And what about the street corridor itself and just the main street?
The whole downtown, not limiting it to just alleys.
So the whole downtown issue has to do with the expected construction through the month of August on Main Street, and the thought that are people going to want to shop and or eat and drink with the street and road construction that's going on in front? So the option of, well, I guess it was just sort of thought of as maybe it wouldn't be the best solution. City council wants to make it happen. I'm fine with it. Whatever we can do. If that option's on the table, then we're open to anything, I think. And I would like Eric to let Karen chime in if possible.
Mayor, if I could, I mean, this is public comment time. You're not dealing with the subject yet, so maybe we could save staff's. I know Eric has a few points he wants to make, so if we could maybe keep the public comment here now.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll come back to this.
And I actually have an 8 o'clock thing, so I might not be able to hang around for that part of it. But Karen, hopefully, will be able to, and she certainly can chime in on my anything that I can bring to the table. Thank you very much.
Thanks again, Matt. All right, any other public comment on agenda items this evening? All right, seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Item A on the consent agenda are the city council minutes for the regular session on Monday, July 6, 2020. 8B, we have the city bills with the addition of the South Central Power Agency bill totaling $1,061,049.48. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda this evening?
I'd make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
We have a motion by member Metzger, support by member McNeil. We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember McNeil,
Yes.
Councilmember Metzger,
Yes.
Councilmember Traver,
Yes.
Councilmember Underhill,
Yes.
Councilmember Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Karen,
Yes.
Councilmember Gates.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. That moves us on to item 13A under reports and recommendations for the street improvement bond proposal. Marguerite is going to brief us on that.
Hello. Just bear with me 1 second here. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the third presentation that we have had. Okay. Everything okay? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you fine, Nick. You might just want to mute your line.
Oh, okay. This is the third presentation we've had regarding road condition and over the last, well, starting in April and May. So we have gone through a series of options and ideas, and I'll go through those today and then summarize where we are at and what the proposal is for tonight's approval. So as you know, in February, 3 directors and the city manager conducted an assessment of our roads. We developed a list of streets at that time that needed resurfacing or reconstruction. Upon realizing the scope of the repairs, we knew that we would need additional revenue to fund the program over the next 2 to 3 years. This slide here shows previous capital spending for the last 3 years. As you can see that we have received significant amount of money in grants. We have also spent funds from our major and local road funds. A tool we use in helping us assess our roads is called Payzer ratings. It's a system all agencies use, and I think you've probably heard them discussed at other council meetings. Roads are judged on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being a brand new road and 1 being a road that needs complete reconstruction. The city has Payzer rating data going back as far as 2005. This is very beneficial because it gives us a lot of history and provides what we call deterioration curves for different types of roads. While it is very beneficial and gives us a lot of information, it also shows us that over the past several years, we've had a consistent decline in our road conditions. So not only is everyone seeing this as they drive the roads, it's pretty obvious, but we also have the data to back that up. On average, after operating expenses annually, through Act 51 funds, we have about $350,000 each year for road rehabilitation or reconstruction. Those would be considered, our capital projects. In 2019, we received nearly $1.75 million in grants, and in 2020, we received almost $1 million in grants. For both of these years, the grant money went towards bridge projects. Unfortunately, or fortunately, but bridge projects are very expensive, but they are important. Obviously, the bridges we replaced are critical points of crossing for the rivers, but they don't have a large, broad, I'll say, impact on city streets as a whole. Next slide, please, Eric. So initially, we proposed to repave 12 miles of city streets. That's what we discussed in May and April. At the time, we came to council proposing a 1 mil increase in levied taxes through our standard operating millage. Through discussions, we knew and council decided that that was not enough to make the impact that we wanted. Also at that time, the pandemic had fully arrived, and we were uncertain as far as Act 51 revenue. We're still somewhat uncertain on that, but it was even, I'll say, larger uncertainty at the time. Also at the time, council preferred to put any increase in levied taxes to a vote by the constituents, excuse me. So we decided that staff would put together a road plan and present it to council for a ballot proposal. And that is where we are at today. Next slide, please. So since April and May, we've done some additional review of streets, and we have determined that 17 miles of road need to be rehabbed. The total amount of construction is estimated at $6.1 million. The city plans to fund $1.6 million of that through grants, special assessments, and the LDFA fund. Those items we discussed in April and May as well. None of those values have changed. $4.5 million of funding is planned through a bond proposal on the November ballot, and the proposed language is in the report for this week, and I'll also have it here in a couple slides. So this pie chart kind of gives you a breakdown of how we're proposing to fund these improvements. Most of it would be with the bond, 73%, but we are actively pursuing 19% in grants, of which 14% of those are funded and 5% are still out for award, meaning we've applied, but we do not, they have not been chosen yet. Next slide, please. As part of this presentation, I wanted to give a visual of what the ideal road management, streets management program would look like. It's not complicated, but it does, take, overall, it's not complicated. When you get into the details, it can be complicated. But the goal is to maintain road condition at the best level through appropriate preventative maintenance and capital construction at the right times. Like I said, it's not only doing the right projects, but doing them at the right time. So you're maximizing your dollar spend, making sure that you're extending your useful life as much as possible. The proposed 17 miles is about 40% of city roads. In essence, the ideal program would rotate every road through a rehab or reconstruction phase, a maintenance phase, a capital maintenance phase, and another maintenance phase to get the maximum life out of each improvement. The bond and term recommendations of this report, take that into consideration. So assuming that Group A is our first chunk of roads, this 40%, we're going to spend 2 to 3 years going through rehab and reconstruction on these roads. Then we spend the next, then those roads are, we'll say, all set, good. They don't need any work done for, let's say, 8 or 10 years. But then the rest of the roads, the other 60%, we're either doing, preventative maintenance, maybe some capital maintenance on those roads to extend the life another 8 or 10 years. Then we get to that 8 or 10 year mark and we kind of start the whole process over again with another set of rehab and reconstruction. At that time, the percentage may be, we'll have 60% of our roads left, assuming all of our construction and our maintenance activities work as planned. Then we would have another, let's say 30% we do in the next rehab and reconstruction phase, and we maintain the other 70% at that time, and so on and so forth. So I was just attempting to give a visual representation of what that looks like for, each, we'll call it, group of roads. Next slide, please. So based on the $4.5 million of repair, we are our proposal is to sell a bond to fund that. We have 3 options presented here as far as the term of the bond. I am recommending a term of 10 years, which would require the city to levy 2.5 additional mills. A 10-year term, while it is the maximum millage, is the best term from a street management standpoint. 10 years is under the extended life for rehab projects. The roads that do not get rehabbed would be part of this, as part of this initial 40%, would be able to be maintained over the next 10 years, and their useful life would be extended beyond the term of the bond. This would also allow for this millage to potentially be renewed after 10-year term so that the next round of capital projects can be completed. So this really sets us up as far as like our foundation for our timing and what's reasonable and responsible from a financial standpoint as far as how long the construction we're doing will last. But not only that, but also how long we can extend the remaining 60% of our roads and not require major capital improvement on those for another 8 to 10 years. There's lots of strategy we can discuss in regards to these term options. I have some comments here in the slide. Obviously, 2.5 mils could be somewhat of a voter sticker shock, maybe not somewhat, but maybe definitely. 2.1 mils, that's a 12-year term. That is still somewhat reasonable within the road plan, not ideal. And it's still over 2 mils. You know, council would need to think about what the impact or what voter response would be to a millage. And then 1.7 mils is a 15-year term. That would be the absolute maximum road life we could actually bond the roads at from a regulatory, maybe, I don't know that that's the right word, best practices standpoint. You don't typically plan on a road lasting, or you don't plan on having to not put any more money into a road for more than 15 years. You might get it out of some roads, but it's not something that you can typically finance that way. But the 1.7 mils obviously looks the best when you consider what voters are seeing and what they're reading in the proposal. Next slide, please. As part of this presentation, we also wanted to review other local road specific millages, whether through bonds or just general operating millages, funding for continuous maintenance. These are approved millages currently in our surrounding area, Calhoun County mostly. The thing we can take away here is that most agencies, municipalities need additional funding to maintain roads. Act 51 funding just doesn't cut it. As I presented several slides ago, $350,000 doesn't go a whole long way. I mean, I think it's probably maybe a quarter of a mile when you consider reconstruction, somewhere between a quarter of a mile and a half mile if you're just doing overlay or a small thin, I'll say, mill and pave. So this is not uncommon, and I just wanted council to see that. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the official proposal language. This has been reviewed by our bond counsel. In summary, I should note that while we do have $4.5 million in estimated repairs, the bond is for $4.75 million. This is because we typically would have around $250,000 in bond costs related to the issuance and management of the bond. So that is why the language is, the amount in the language is increased. This proposal language has 10 years as the term, because that's my recommendation. We could discuss that tonight and change that if needed before we send it to the county. Also, it identifies here that the estimated millage that would be levied to pay the proposed bonds in the first year is at 2.5 on $2.50 per $1,000 of taxable value. So, in general, some quick math here. If a homeowner has a $200,000 home, this is going to cost them $250 a year. $250,000 home, $313 a year. A $450,000 home would be $565 a year. So that's just some rough math to relate this to. Next slide, please. That summarizes all the information I have tonight. I'm happy to open it up to discussion and questions at this point, and we can talk details on any of this information that you would like.
Marguerite, it's Nick. I have a question or a comment. I think since this is going to the voters, I think it's disingenuous in the heading for it to only say bond proposal. I think it has to have tax increase or tax or millage or whatever included in that heading, because not everybody's going to read all that.
Okay. I think we can certainly adjust that. Let's see. There is typically a, and I don't show it here, a title to the proposal that we would include. I've seen from some of the other examples, and it does have some sort of language to that effect. So I don't think that's an issue.
I think it's only fair that we do that.
Well, my only concern there, Nick, is that there's a lot of people that will see tax increase and stop right there and vote no without actually giving the consideration.
Or they're going to vote yes and not see it at all. And then they're really going to be angry.
I guess I see tax increase right at the beginning is inflammatory, and that's going to make people stop. Whereas if if they have to read the information to find out what it is, that's what they should be doing, right? I mean, they should be informed when they vote.
Yeah, but they don't. Or you could say millage adjustment. You have to say something. You just can't say bond proposal, because I would go through that readily, I think.
In the resolution, it says street improvement bond proposal millage. That seems good to me.
Again, this came from bond counsel, and whatever we do has to legally get through the county clerk and through the state to do so. That's where this comes from.
Several of the examples we looked at when looking at this say local road improvement bond proposal, road improvement bond proposal. For those that are talking about a typical operating millage, proposal to restore authorized operating millage. So ones that most exactly match what we're doing is local road improvement bond proposal. That would be the title, if you will.
Well, I'm glad I'm not here next year.
Anyone else have any questions for Marguerite?
I do. Marguerite, do you see this as a solution to dig us out of the hole we're in, we wouldn't need to renew this in 10 years, or do you see this as a recurring thing that we're still going to have to play catch up, through a couple of cycles till we're really into your maintenance plan?
I see this as recurring, honestly, and I would think it would take 3 cycles to potentially get us at, just looking at the 40% we're proposing now. I would say that the amount needed as we get through this cycle would be less, because we would be actively focusing and have availability for maintenance activities that we may not have had in the past. So, for example, the bridge projects, it's great. We received $2.7 million in grants over the last 2 years, but those projects also came with upwards of $250,000 in engineering costs. That's half of our budget outside of operating expenses for those 2 years. So it takes, the Act 51 money is just not enough. And that's what we're seeing now, and we're seeing the decline of road conditions to show us that.
I actually have one more, and this is actually for Tom. You had mentioned before, Tom, that the reason a lot of our roads are at the same age is because we did a pretty major project with water and sewer or one of those back in I think it was like 20 years ago. How did we fund that?
That was paid through bonds that the water fund paid for. So we did it. The water fund paid for it, and that was about 95 or thereabouts. That we did a lot of those projects, give or take a couple years either side of that. The one thing that we really would like from council, again, this is our recommendation, the 10-year. But again, if you want to do a different period, you're putting a little more risk on the life of the road. I mean, there's certain streets that have held up well. Just picking on East Drive and North Drive, it's starting to fall apart. That's part of a state grant we have. That's over 25 years old. It just depends on the traffic. As a few of us know, cul-de-sacs get really chewed up just because of the turning motions of large trucks, garbage trucks. Let's get specific on this. And also just certain neighborhoods with traffic flow. So, something may last you 20 years, something may last you less than 15. So our recommendation is let's get out there over Marguerite didn't mention this, but this would be over a 2 or 3 year period. We would not try to do all 17 miles in 1 year. That would it'd be a lot of work for a small staff.
Well, in terms of that term, I think I would favor the 10-year term. I just think it's the most fiscally responsible way to do it. We're talking about an increase anyway. It's percentage-wise not a hugely more expensive increase to do it, and I think it's more responsible to do the 10 years. So I would favor the 10-year.
And to your point, Marguerite, you mentioned that you think that this is a continuing cycle, that the 10 years won't be the end of this. I think if we've got an opportunity in 10 years to assess the progress that we're making with that structure and to see what public funds are available at the time, I would rather do that than extend it and have a default of 12 or more years. So I'm in favor of 10 years as well.
Yeah, I've people have heard me comment that we've ignored, and I'm not saying we as just Marshall, we as a country have ignored our infrastructure for decades. And I think as we saw last year from Emmett Township and Penfield Township year or two before that, people accept that unfortunately the bill's coming due, and we're going to have to do this. So I'm in support of the measure as well.
I am too. I'm in favor of the 10 years. We always hear about our roads, and I think the more we can do in the least amount of time would be best. But still knowing that every year we're still going to hear complaints about our roads because it's going to take a long time to get them all looking good. But I'm in support of the 10 year.
And yeah, thank you, Marguerite, for putting in your presentation what the other local municipalities and townships are doing. That certainly puts it in perspective for all of us when we're making this decision to see where everyone else is at. And yeah, I would tend to agree with other council members that 10 years seems to be the most fiscally responsible way to do this. And then take a look at that time on what's available and what's needed, and we can revisit the funding at that time.
Do we have a plan B should this not pass?
Yes. Go ahead, Marguerite.
Darn, I was gonna let you go.
I'll go first if you want. Yeah,
Good.
what my thought is that, you know, I'm an optimist. I hope people will understand what this will do. Marshall's been very supportive over the years. You've lived here most of your lives. The plan B would be come back to you. First of all, going out to the public, asking the public why it got defeated. Social media, however you want to do that. Was it the millage rate? Was it something else? You could then go at a future date, the next election, and put it back on the ballot. If it's important to you now, it should be important, next year if it doesn't. But find out what happened. We're limited in what we can do as staff on selling to the public. We can give facts. We can't give opinions. We can't tell somebody go out and vote yes, but we can say this is what it would do. So that would be, I guess, the plan B would be revisit. I don't. Sure, you could cut back on streets, do it in 10 years, but doing 6 miles worth versus 17 miles, have you really done enough? So that, I'm not sure if that was Marguerite's plan B or not, but that would be my suggestion.
I would agree with all of that. I think, yeah, you have to find out why it would have been voted down. Between now and then, I do have some ideas. I've been following some other bond proposals that are out to vote now, actually for the August election, and they're I'll call it public education campaign, if you will, following the rules that Tom discussed, but just trying to share as much information as we can on a consistent basis. I don't know exactly how we'll do that. Through social media would be a big one, but I'm a big fan. I think you kind of hit home when you do consistent, not necessarily repetitive, but consistent routine postings, short bits of information that we can get out over the next several months, and just start sharing information about what we're trying to do, the plan. It's an open book plan. We've given the list of streets that need the work. The map is pretty clear that it's spread across, all through town. And oh, nice deer. So then if it does get declined, Tom said, find out why it didn't. We can always drop back to a different millage rate, and go from there. We can adjust how much we're doing. But I think that this is the right course of action. It's from an infrastructure standpoint, we are doing the right roads now. It gets us the impact. It gets us moving forward in the right direction. And so, I hope we can convince and share information so that people are convinced to vote yes.
Well, we're going to definitely need some messaging so that we can get it out there. And the other thing is, of those other cities and townships that you showed us that either voted, pretty much all voted except for a couple. How did it come out?
All of those I showed you are voter approved. Well, if it said voted, they were approved. So those are active road millages today.
Well, that should be more positive then.
The last election, I wish I could remember which one. Marshall Township had a road proposal that failed. It sometimes voters do, but it's you never know until you go out and do the best job you can. But I'm not sure what the politics was in Marshall Township, and we've been driving through the COVID. We've been taking a lot of drives outside of town, and you can tell when you leave one township and go into the other township. It's amazing the difference. And they have the county road department that's funding some of the roads at 50%. So it's Emmett Township is doing a phenomenal program right now.
I think to Marguerite's point, is the more information we get out and the clearer that we are about our message and what we're trying to accomplish, the better off we're going to be. So we'll definitely need to put together a good program in order to do that. Any additional questions for Marguerite at this time regarding the street improvement bond proposal? All right, hearing none, the recommendation is that the council adopt the resolution for street improvement bond proposal language for placement on the November 3rd, 2020 general election ballot. This proposal approves the sale of bonds in the amount of up to $4,750,000 for a term not to exceed 10 years. If the street improvement bond proposal passes, an additional 2.5 mils will be levied on city residents starting in August of 2021.
So moved.
Support.
Support.
We have a motion by member Wolfersberger, support by member McNeil. We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Member Metzger,
Yes.
Member Traver,
Yes.
Member Underhill,
Yes.
Member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Karen,
Yes.
Member Gates,
Yes.
Member McNeil.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have item 13B, motor pool purchases. Marguerite, will you please brief us on this?
Certainly. Every year, as you likely know, we schedule specific capital purchases for the motor pool fund. Motor pool manages is the fund, I guess, that supports all of our vehicle and equipment purchases. We have a schedule to replace 11 new units this year, and our budgeted amount is $368,000. That was passed with the most recent budget. The first 3 purchases for this fiscal year are required this month. We've been doing some work on trying to get them, trying to spread them out, understanding when we need them, lead times, all of that good information, so that we are being cognizant of our cash situation, considering our funding uncertainty with the pandemic. So the first 3 units need to be purchased, ordered this month, so that they can be used in October for the fall leaf pickup. These units will be DPW equipment. They include a John Deere wheel loader and 2 Tink 720 claw buckets. The wheel loader is used year-round for leaf removal, tree removal, brush pickup, snow removal, and any other DPW function. The Tink claws are new to the city. The loader is a replacement of our 1994 Cat 938F loader. Over the past 2 years or so, city staff have been exploring various options in regards to leaf pickup. The current machines are older, and they are not supported anymore from a parts standpoint. So if we have to replace parts, we have to order them with 3 to 4 month lead time. They have to get made, and they're very expensive. The current system also is very weather dependent. As we know, with Michigan Falls, it could snow on Halloween, and then leaf pickups get suspended for a week or so until things dry out a little bit more, because the current system has a sort of a vacuum pickup, whereas the claws are a mechanical claw type system that attaches to the loader. So it can be used in any weather condition. It can snow tomorrow, melt overnight, and we can pick up leaves the next day, which would greatly help our leaf pickup. Sometimes we get trapped late in the year with snow and it's not going away and doesn't get warm enough, and we're trying to suck up wet leaves, and it's not efficient. In considering the other challenges with the equipment, this is our proposal for the new system. The State of Michigan My Deal program allows the city to participate in large volume bids for equipment, and that's how we have gotten the pricing on this. It benefits the city by saving city staff time in preparing bid specifications, analyzing bid documents, and cost savings with large volume of state purchases. So we were able to go out direct to a supplier that is approved through the My Deal program and request this equipment. They get approved for each type of equipment, and so we go to the supplier that is approved, or suppliers that are approved for this type of equipment, get a quote that meets our specs, and we have a price. So the loader is approximately $201,509.56. The 2 tank claw buckets are $20,183 each. All of this equipment is coming from AIS Equipment in Lansing. These items are both slightly more costly than originally budgeted, but the loader maximum net cost will be $183,509.56 after we do a trade-in or sell of the existing loader. So we feel that we've gotten a trade-in value for $18,000. We feel we can get more for it if we auction it off. So the recommendation tonight is for council to approve the purchase of the John Deere wheel loader and the Tink claw buckets from AIS Equipment in Lansing.
Thank you, Marguerite. Any council members have questions for Marguerite regarding these motor pool purchases?
Yeah, Marguerite, how do you feel about the remaining budget? And the way I read this, it sort of consumes 2/3 of the budget early in the cycle. Are you feeling okay about that?
I'm getting my head wrapped around motor pool, to be honest still. We have identified 2 units that can be deferred to either next year or the following year that were previously planned for this year. So that's one of them was estimated about $25,000. I can't remember off the top of my head the other one. So I'm feeling pretty good now. We will have later this year. The other unit was a lawnmower that we were planning to purchase later in the spring. So at this point, I feel pretty good about where we're at.
Marguerite, I know that you've done a lot of research on the best way to pick up leaves, and our current system, is no longer really effective with the equipment that we have. Are most other municipalities doing leaf pickup this way? And is there any additional, strain to the roads in order to do it, with the bucket pickup system versus what we were doing previously?
I don't believe there would be any additional strain to the roads. I can't tell you a specific city that is using this. Tom might know, but I do know that they are specifically designed for this kind of work. I don't know a lot of cities that do leaf pickup in general. I guess on this grand of a scale, I shouldn't say that. I don't have an example for you, no.
The claws are the most used system now. The Ford New Hollands, have gone away because the parts can't find them, but this is the most used system, if not just. The other one, which isn't as effective, is just using the bucket, the regular loader bucket. Another way smaller communities with not as many miles we have, they use a vacuum. Somebody walks behind with a vacuum. We do have one we use in the cemetery. That's if you don't have a lot of streets to cover. I mean, we've got 42 miles of streets that are covered in a very short period of time. So this is the most used piece of equipment. I know when I've looked at them before.
With the change in the process, do we see any? Do you foresee any opportunities that this will be labor saving at all, or are we still looking at the overtime and the effort?
I do not think that we will have the weather-driven overtime to get it done, because we won't get crunched into a 3-day window per se to get half the city done. So from that aspect, I think it would be a savings on overtime. As far as the overall time it takes, we don't know if it will be a lot faster yet or not, you know. In my experience, I don't have the history to tell you what that would look like at this point.
With the new process, will the residents need to do anything differently?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, any additional questions for Marguerite at this point? All right, so hearing none, the recommendation is to approve the purchase of a new John Deere 544L wheel loader for $201,509.56 and 2 Tink 720 claw buckets for $20,183 each from AIS Equipment in Lansing.
So moved.
So moved. Support.
We have a motion from Member McNeil and support from Member Underhill. Do a roll call vote, please.
Member Traver,
Yes.
Member Underhill,
Yes.
Member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Karen,
Yes.
Member Gates,
Yes.
Member McNeil,
Yes.
Member Metzger.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. That moves us on to item 13C on the agenda, electric vehicle charging stations. Ed, will you please brief us on this, please?
If I may, just before Ed gets going, I want to apologize. The contract with West Side was not put in your packets. I can send it out now. I apologize for that. That was our mistake that it didn't get in the packet. But I'm going to let Ed, and you will see an email if you want to take a look at it now. So I'm going to send it here while Ed's doing that.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Yeah, this is the presentation, I guess, for the recommendation for the installation of electric vehicle charging station in downtown Marshall. And it just seems like a short period of time ago, but in in February of 2019, at its strategic planning session, the city council established a goal to analyze, investigate the installation of charging stations in downtown Marshall, electric vehicle charging stations in downtown Marshall. Shortly thereafter, after that goal was established, the Marshall staff began looking at the how to accomplish this goal. And there's three main things we looked at. And one first is to determine the locations of the stations, explore funding sources, and determine electric power availability for all the for the charging stations. So what we did, we contacted, they contacted us, and we did some due diligence on them, called Westside Solutions, who's a partner with ChargePoint, who's a manufacturer of pedestal charging locations, stations. And so, because they had much experience in the state of Michigan in installing these at either residential or commercial locations. And first thing we want to do is come up, what would it take to, what's the cost to install these? And then there's grants available through the Volkswagen settlement agreement that would allow the city to apply for a grant and see if we couldn't fund the project. Really, we expected at the time a 50-50 match on the thing, on the grant. But Cheryl wrote the grant in late 2019. And so I think Marshall was the first submission for the grant. We wanted to get in early, so we wouldn't, I don't know how many other people were going to participate in the grant application. And Cheryl had excellent follow-up with the Michigan Energy Office, which is the Department of Eagle, and kept asking them, because they had first indicated there was going to be grants are going to be issued in early January. Well, that didn't happen, and she had a lot of follow-up with them, and finally, I got to get this date right. I think it was like in April. We got a grant award of $98,140 out of a installation cost of $100,140. It requires a $2,000 match by the city for these installations. So basically, the Volkswagen settlement grant is funding the two downtown locations for electric charging vehicles. So we were quite pleased with that, of course. And just a couple months ago, I think in May, we went to the city council and said, should we accept the grant or not? And the city council approved accepting the grant. And it's been signed off by the state and signed off by now the city council. And our next point is what the intent of tonight is to get both ChargePoint and Westside Solutions involved in the actual installation, and they're raring to go on this one. So again, we did a lot of due diligence on Westside. They're very experienced in this, and ChargePoint is a very reliable system. We found out from other installations, and the locations in Marshall are going to be at the Grand Street parking lot off Michigan Avenue on the southeast corner, and also at the very east end of the Farmers Market parking lot. Now, there will be 3 of these charging pedestals in each of those locations for a total of 6, and each pedestal can handle 2 cars to be charged. We could do less if that's what you want, but I was kind of looking to the future. All indications are that electric vehicles are going to increase in popularity and use, and we thought we'd prepare ourselves for that inevitable usage there. So our recommendation is to sign the contract, or have the city clerk sign the contract with. First, what we're going to do, we have not had Westside Solutions sign the contract yet. I was waiting really for tonight's outcome, whether or not we should send it on to them or not. So we'll have them sign the contract, then I'll come back for the city clerk's signature, assuming that the city council approves going forward with this project that was really determined at a strategic planning process a year and a half ago now. Again, it's a $1,140,000 contract with ChargePoint, fully reimbursable from the state up except for the last $2,000. We will be required to pay Westside Solutions as we go through this, and then seek reimbursement from the state for the $98,140.
Is that a guaranteed, Ed? Reimbursement from the state?
It is, if you believe the state will pay their bills.
And then, assuming this is approved this evening, when do you suspect it will be operational?
I would think sometime in because the electric, let me just take the side here, the electric connection is going to be pretty straightforward, so that's not going to be the issue, and I think they've already got the materials in hand. So this could be operational as early as October. And probably sooner.
Okay. Do you feel that there really is a need for all of those?
Everything I've read, yes, I think that this, well, it's going to be with everything that's going on, I think there's be more and more electric vehicles on the road. These things will handle you're familiar with the Tesla installation north of town. And of course, those will only charge Teslas. That's a special arrangement for Tesla owners. These units here will charge everything, including Teslas. If somebody wants to drive into town and do whatever they do, go to a restaurant or shop or whatever. So I think it'll support the economic development of downtown also.
How will they know where they are?
Let's see what happens here. Yeah, what happens is that when people have an electric vehicle, they purchase charging credits, and then and it's on their iPhone. It shows, okay, I want to go there. Where's the nearest charging station? It'll come up right on some kind of a smart device.
Okay, so it would be like MapQuest or whatever. It would just show them.
It would show the exact location.
ChargePoint has an app.
Yes.
Okay. You have an electric vehicle, Scott?
No, but I'm kind of a geek, in case you haven't heard. So I pay attention.
I'm happy to hear the quantity of them. Our meeting before, I thought it was only going to be one charger at each location. So I'm happy to hear there's, sounds like up to 6 at each location. I think that's great.
Yeah, and what we're going to do initially, and we'll just see how this works, because I was a little concerned about taking like 6 parking slots in the farmers market and another 6 at Grand Street. We're going to put a sign up saying that these are really reserved. We'll have to figure out the language exactly, but basically anybody can park there, but they're really for charging vehicles or for electric vehicles. If we get a high demand for electric vehicles, then we might change the signage to them. It's just reserved strictly for electric vehicles.
Hey Ed, I apologize. Sorry, if I can, Ryan. I apologize if this is blindsiding, because it's kind of a little bit of a technical question, but I'm just curious if ChargePoint has provided any information on whether they have plans to be able to upgrade their chargers if the need arises. There's literally dozens of new electric vehicles that are coming out in the next 2 or 3 years, and I'm just curious. I understand the charging adapter itself is pretty standardized now, but whether they would be able to increase the voltage capacity or the amperage capacity, whichever, to be able to for these fast chargers. I'm just curious if they address that.
They have not. The ones that will be installed, we expect to be in there for 5 years. That's the warranty period on them. This is the technology that's being used currently, and you're absolutely right, Scott. That this, just like a cell phone, this technology is changing weekly.
Ed, would you be willing to share with council about the fast charging locations that you're working with here in town?
I am, but we've been waiting and again inquiring about, because we also have a grant in for a level 3 charging station. We have, and that's going to be at the Winston Park Shell location, and that's a whole different animal. Really, that would really be it'd be a 3-way ownership or 3-way contribution for the installation between the state, Shell station, and the city, and it's going to be about $50,000 for us. But those things really, when level 3 charging, and I've looked at the Tesla, and the average revenue we're getting off a month there is $15,000 to $20,000 off that installation up there. So they really can pay for themselves in a hurry. And Shell is very anxious to get one out there, but we have not heard back from the state on that one yet.
Ed, that kind of leads into my question. I'm certainly in favor of this, and it's great that we've got this settlement, funds to do this, and I appreciate Cheryl really being on top of that. But what's the life expectancy of these units, and then will the rate that's determined, with ChargePoint on the power kind of be put towards, upgrading these units in the future? How are we gonna do our maintenance and take care of it from there?
Yeah, actually, the city will be the owner of these things, and we'll have a maintenance agreement with ChargePoint to keep them running. And of course, they're wirelessly connected to a central station for ChargePoint, so they'll know if something's amiss with them. The estimate is they'll be good for 10 years. We have a 5-year warranty again with them, and I don't think we'd want to keep any kind of this technology for more than 5 to 10 years, really, because it's going to be so. I think it's going to be changing so fast, and maybe someday they'll all be level 3s. For installation like this. Now, it creates quite a different challenge for the electric department, because that's a 480 volt 3-phase installation versus a 240 volt single phase installation. But did I answer your question, Mr. Mayor, or not?
I believe mostly. The funds received from these charging stations, can that be earmarked to go towards future installations of better equipment?
Yeah. We and I haven't done this yet, but we got to establish a rate that we're going to charge in this, and I got to go see what what's around. And we would definitely want to cover enough to for future replacement, almost like for depreciation and the whole thing on it, and also for. I don't think there's going to be a lot of maintenance on them. They're just going to sit there and be an outlet for people to plug into.
Sure.
And there's that 5-year warranty, so that's covered by the manufacturer. So, yeah, I think that when we set the rate up, we definitely want to put enough in there for future, for a reserve fund to draw upon in the future. Because I don't think the state will come back again and
right.
Have that like right. This is just kind of a one and out with them. So we want to make sure the rates. I haven't done the rates yet because that's going to be a lot of work, and if the council approves this, that'll be our next chore, along with getting these things going. We got to establish the rate. And they'll each installation will have its own meter, and so we'll know how much energy is being consumed. But then we also got to figure out how much is the customer or the end user going to pay when they buy their credit card or their debit card almost to use the charger.
Okay.
What's the hourly rate?
All right. Any additional questions for Ed this evening regarding the electric vehicle charging stations? All right. Hearing none, the recommendation is to approve entering into an agreement with Westside Solutions for the installation of 2 level 2 electric vehicle charging stations located in the downtown in the amount of $100,140. I'd authorize the clerk to sign the agreement.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion by member Metzger and support by member Wolfersberger. We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Tracy, you're muted.
Good.
Sorry. Member Underhill,
Yes.
Member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Karen,
Yes.
Member Gates,
Yes.
Member McNeil,
Yes.
Member Metzger,
Yes.
Member Traber.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have item 13D, creation of the Marshall Social District. Eric, would you please brief us on this report?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. The Marshall Social District proposal in front of you tonight is the result of a couple months of discussion, but frankly, it's the act of the legislature creating the social district law that was effective July 1st. So while I know a lot of us wish we could have done this earlier, we really couldn't by statute. I mean, this wasn't allowed until July 1st. So we've been looking at the issue, talking about various things. So tonight there are other issues related to other businesses, but tonight we're just the social district. What it would do is create an area where licensed establishments could sell alcohol in very identifiable cups that they could take outside and sip, drink as they go, as they sit outside. They don't have to be in the outdoor patio areas that you see at Broadway and Grand River. They have to be within the boundaries of the district that you establish. There's a working group that's put together the plan you have in front of you tonight with the boundaries. Obviously, everything can be adjusted as you desire. There are no restrictions on the size of really on the size of it for the city of Marshall. I mean, whatever we've got, no issues there. The other issue with it, we had to as we created the district, we had to have at least 2 licensed premises contiguous or covered within the district. So right now we have 5 in the current iteration. Obviously, there are a couple other establishments, and there's some in escrow right now at Saraswellas that could be added at this time or at a future point too, to see as things move forward. I think one thing we need to get clear is we're not necessarily talking like Grand River. I mean, what Grand River is doing right now can definitely be included, but this can be just open, people walking through. There doesn't need to be seating. Obviously, it's very beneficial if there is, but it's not required. You could just walk down. I could walk out the stagecoach with a beer in a very identifiable cup, and my wife and I could hang out downtown for a little while or in this designated area. That's the big thing. What you're doing, we're asking you tonight is to create the opportunity. If you create the opportunity, you approve the request, then the establishments in the area you'd create have to then go to the Liquor Control Commission and apply for a permit. It's $250 for them. So they put that request in. I'm not sure how fast Liquor Control is approving these requests. I have not seen too many communities. I posted a question out to several other communities. I've seen a few that have done it, like Port Huron has approved it, but Plymouth and Coldwater and obviously Marshall we're discussing it. Battle Creek's doing something similar to this behind like the Griffin and the Cricket Club. So I think you're seeing a lot of communities waiting to see this law obviously come into place before, because what it started with and where it's at now it's a little different. So we would be having to change on the fly. So I think this gives us a good starting point. And then as we discuss other options, whether it be the closure of Michigan Avenue for a weekend or whatever, those are all other discussions that don't need necessarily be tied to this one. I'm happy to answer any specific questions on where we came up with, why we came up with it, and where we go from here. I know Nick did ask a question about expense. The specific expense, the only required expense, there are 2 of them, is signage. You have to post signs that say you're leaving the Marshall Social District, or whatever name we want to come up with for it. So people are aware of where those limits are. And then someone has to buy cups that have to be identifiable. I can't just give you a red Solo cup because anybody can have a red Solo cup. It would have to be a cup with some type of logo or other marker that's identifiable, that police or liquor control staff driving by go, okay, that's okay to be there.
So when you talk about that mug or glass or whatever you're using, sorry, there's dogs coming down the street. They're not mine. Anyway, are you going to change that out every day? Because you could fill your glass at home and come right back downtown tomorrow.
Well, and that's up to the business owners. They're the ones that are buying maybe through MEDA group buying and, working with the business owners. They're the ones that have to sell. They're the ones that have to buy the glasses, use them. They can't be glass, so some type of plastic cup. Changing them out too often will be a problem, because then that's just the turnover on the design and your costs go up dramatically. Some of the concerns we had by when we didn't include parking lots, where I didn't want someone to be able to take their cup, drink it, go to their car, fill it up with a beer, and then come back down. I like the idea of being able to stroll. I get it. I get it. My wife and I would love to do that. But there are some difficulties. And I think it's the nature of the beast. We're going to have those. It's a new thing. We'll have to see as things move forward. We may have to adjust. There is a provision that if you do create this tonight, that we are allowed to end it. We have to have a public hearing. If we decide that, hey, it's just too crazy, it's not going well, we hold a public hearing, you can vote to end it at that time. We're also required, and we are in the process of developing the maintenance and public safety plans, management, how we're going to manage the district. So there are questions related to, who's picking up the garbage, who's doing, how we're allowing the seating and things like that. I know one question that did come up with the Grand River discussion was the alley. If we close the alley off with deliveries and things like that, MEDA did go down through and talk to every business on the block. Amy Chris did it, and she had indicated to us that from Friday to Sunday, that there are Friday afternoon to Sunday night, there are no deliveries on that block. So most everybody else getting their deliveries earlier in the week. That's as passed on. Amy passed on to us.
So about the establishments on the other side of the street, what about them?
Right now, as it was laid out, and there was some discussion about the structure of what we would include on this, what we wouldn't include on this. Right now, they couldn't participate if they're not contiguous to the district. If you wanted to add Mike's and somebody opens theirs as well as backup again, something in there.
And Bogart.
In the Bogart, yes. I mean, they would all have to
have the
participate.
flower house that has wine.
Yep, and that rosé did come up. All these places did come up in our discussion. I think it was some of the concern was it's new. There was concern about where it would go if you expand it too far. What how it would work. It was just kind of like a trial run. Some of the group wanted to look at. I will say this is modeled after a law in Ohio. Arkansas, Colorado also have very similar things. Ohio's the newest. They've been rolling them out in the last year. So looking at what Ohio has and what Michigan has, it's pretty similar. I think someone just said, hey, that looks good. Let's do it here.
I think
I hear
the
you.
ones I've been to have usually been strolling throughout town, not just in an alley. In fact, I've never been to one of those.
The Ohio ones I've looked at are most of their downtown areas. Some are, I would say, gerrymandered, for lack of a better word. But that is, that is how they were established in those communities. I know Coldwater is, I think, thinking the entire downtown. Plymouth has not shared that with us.
They're downtown.
Yeah, I know, but I haven't seen if they're doing the whole downtown or if they're doing a specific area. We're going to share information as we move forward with Plymouth and Coldwater. So we're all just kind of looking at each other, going, "What are you doing? How are you going to react?" But this is a lot to do in a very short time frame. And I've got a lot of discussions to move forward with this.
I like the idea of strolling. I think that's great. I'm in favor of whatever we want to do. I think we need to try something, and it's going to be a trial and error. My concern about if we do the strolling is less people would be in the alley, and if we don't allow the strolling, then more people would be in the alley, so the business would focus more on the appearance of the alley. If we allow strolling for the entire downtown, why people would go behind the buildings and if they can be in the front. Just throwing that out there as an observation. I'm not saying we should or shouldn't do it either way. So I do like the idea of the entire town being a district. But there's a lot of expense associated with that, with the lights and everything. That maybe that's only in the alley part, even though the district's wider. We only focus, or whoever's dollars it is, MEDA's dollars only focuses on the one alley as a test pilot program before expanding that part of it. But
I think that's very valid, because I think if you can look at it, you can create specific seating areas. You can say, hey, we're going to have, the Copper, Broadway, Grand River, Schuler's, they're going to throw tables in the alley if they want. Their choice. I think one of the things we would require in the maintenance plan is they have to put a trash can outside their door so that they help in making sure things get disposed of. But yeah, so I think if you make an attractive area, and I know it's a completely different community, so I'm not trying to equate it, but if you've ever been to the Belt in Detroit, it's an alley that during the day is an alley. At night, there are bars and other businesses that expand into the alley and use it for this purpose. So it's activating an alley. We were looking at doing the same thing in Quincy, trying to make things more attractive, bring in other reasons for people to be downtown and make attractive an area that's not always attractive.
So I have a few comments. I understand that time is very important with this, but I think a lot of us have a lot of questions, especially with the boundaries that were spoken about earlier, by everyone that was joining us. This current proposal only has the south alley included, and I think there probably needs to be some more discussion on how large this area is. And I'm also a little uncomfortable with not really understanding what the maintenance and management agreement would be, approving something tonight without having a better idea of what we're having you develop. And I also, after hearing from Matt and Karen, I do realize that there is a desire for MEDA to kind of be partners with the city in moving this forward. But, other than a few comments and, informal conversations, I'd like to have that discussion with, the whole council and maybe, work session, kind of a setting so we can better understand, the goal that everyone's looking for, who's going to be responsible for what. And I really want to make sure that we do this the right way. So those are just kind of my comments. I think we would have the ability to have a work session before our next meeting in August. Like I said, I understand that the timing is important and we need to get this done as soon as possible, but I also don't want to go forward with something without, making sure we make all the appropriate considerations and do it the right way. And I'm happy to hear any other council members' suggestions on that.
I'm fine with the work session, Joe, as long as you want to have it tomorrow or the next day, because I honestly think I think the downtown has suffered a bit over this whole past several months, and it would be nice if we could help them at all. So I'm not at all opposed to a work session because there's a lot of questions, but we should have it relatively.
I'd like to hear what Karen has to say. There is a MEDA meeting tomorrow morning, so I'm sure this will be on the agenda as well, because this hasn't been discussed as a MEDA board yet. It's moving fast, but I think a lot of answers can be answered.
If I may be
within the next 24 hours.
If I may, before Karen speaks, because maybe she can address my questions as well. But so just for a point of clarification, so that this is a designated district, but it's there's no like barriers that like visible barriers that tell you when you're in it outside of signage.
That is correct, Scott. You have to put signs up that say you're in the Marshall Social District. You're leaving the Marshall Social District. The barriers would only be required if you were to close down an alley, close down a street, which is another action. So closing of streets is specific in the statute that says you need to have approval of the governing body to close the road. So
I understand that's they were going to close the alley too, though, because parking wouldn't be allowed behind the buildings.
That has been the discussion so far, is to close the alley, but it doesn't mention that in the act. That's just in your purview as council.
Tom, would you please go ahead?
Sure. Couple things. First, I'll just jump on we did talk to Mark Stewart today, Eric and myself, and he's very much in favor of it. And he asked the question about his tenants. Has 2 parking spaces on his property outside the city's purview. And I said, in most cases, that person could go from the parking lot in front of the library into those parking spaces. Similar, Ryan, behind your business, the tables would be set up more in the areas behind the 4 or 5 establishments. The other thing on what you could do is instead of calling a work session, you could call a special meeting, start it out as a work session, and then take action. Again, I know Nick asked for very quick, but I've also heard that you want to see the rules. The management plan is what it's called. So, you know, I guess Eric's been working on this. I don't know. We'd like to have a complete document for you that we can then tweak. For instance, with hours, is it seasonal? Is it a May 1 through November 1? Those type things we can add into that plan and adopt that, amend that plan. But Eric, I guess I'd like to ask you is, when do you think you could have a management plan that we could really look at and review?
Looking at what's going to happen in other, like Ohio as an example, probably by Wednesday afternoon. I could get it done. I want to talk to Director McDonald. We're going to talk tomorrow before or after director's meeting about some public safety issues. And I also want to talk to Marguerite.
Is anybody from MEDA's leadership involved in those meetings with you, Eric?
Yeah, Matt Davis has been involved since the transition from Karen as chair, and then Amy, Chris from staff has been involved in those discussions.
Okay.
So there's, I'm sorry, I'm just going back to that, to the barrier question. So there's going to be no active enforcement of the social district. People could just wander in and out of it as the evening goes on.
As it's set up, yeah. I mean, you have police patrol. Are you going to sit a police officer down there 24/7? Probably not. But they will be through there as it's considered right now. I mean, that's something that if it's an issue, becomes an issue that, you know, I know Director McDonald will be there, and Chief Lank will be the first ones to say, hey, we got a problem. And I think a lot of that's going back into the public hearing aspect of it to say, hey, look, we've tried this. We've had all these problems. At this point, there's no money to do this, or we have an issue here. We just can't get over. And then you can repeal the district. I'm not hoping that happens. I'm just giving you the worst case scenario.
Right. Well, and that does lead to, I mean, one of the questions that I had asked, and it's one of the reasons I was hoping David would be on the call tonight was when the issue of liability. I pointed out that if someone overindulges at a bar or a restaurant and then goes and causes an accident or harm to another, that establishment can be liable for allowing that person to leave or be overserved. And I have a concern that if somebody's wandering from bar to bar, that they could essentially end up in the same situation where they're not being, there's no one person that's monitoring them, but they're in our social district. A conversation I had with Attorney Rabor on Saturday was that he compared it to an event like the Blues Fest or that type of thing. But those events have an organizer that takes that responsibility. So I guess I'm concerned that the city would be that organizer in this social district.
Well,
Can we have Karen speak now? I know she's been holding for a couple hours. Or...
Karen, you should be live.
Okay, yeah, great, thanks. So I would share with the mayor and the council one way potentially for you to consider to move things forward and not wait till August, because August is just too long. And I know you all feel that same urgency. When we started meeting, the city, MEDA, MDOT, and the Calhoun County Health Department talking through this, it was before the social district laws had come into play. We knew they were coming, they were in discussions, but as Eric mentioned, those just came into play now. We did talk about a plan to just close the alleys and allow eating and dining with a barricaded alley closure as kind of a step towards before we knew what we were going to do for the social district. So I don't know if that's still an option, but that would be an option. I from my perspective, to still close the north and south alleys for the same duration that's indicated in your resolution. Maybe not open it up for the social districting yet, in part because that would take time anyway. Even if you establish the district, and listening to Eric, it sounds like the businesses would still have to get their licenses. But in the meantime, I do believe we could still close the alleys, still allow some exposure or some expansion of tables and shop retail to occur in the meantime, while maybe the social districting is kind of mapped out in terms of how that's going to all look and all the implications for that. So I did want to throw that out as an option, because that was the original intent of our meetings together, was to establish something like that until the social districting could come into play.
I did ask David to join us tonight, and David, I don't know if you're prepared to maybe answer some of Scott's questions.
There's a lot of Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. There's a lot of dynamic that's going on here, and in terms of liability, obviously this is a new act, so we don't have case law on point that will address this. However, generally a government has governmental immunity except for gross negligence. And so merely establishing the district is not gross negligence. But within the act that has some concern is that the governing body shall maintain the commons area in a manner that protects the health and safety of the community. So one of the things from an administrative point of view is definitely to look at the maintenance and management plan of this. There's been a lot of discussion about the district and the map of the district. And so Tom and I had some discussions earlier tonight about that. And we talked about those establishments that would be eligible to participate in this. And I don't like to point out any businesses, but in the example of Stagecoach, Eagle Street would need to be part of it, but for I think patrons of, say, Schuler's on the area, the table area outside, you know, that district would need to be extended down to almost Green Street. And so one of the concerns that I raised with Tom today was being able to cordon off the streets, either it be Eagle or Jefferson, in a way that vehicle traffic can't go up and down those streets if people are going to be in and about those streets. So having those streets as part of the common area makes sense for Stagecoach and, you know, Schuler's if it's extended down, but yet the maintenance plan simply would not permit the consumption of alcohol in the streets or the tables in the streets unless there's a separate day permit for that. So there could be signage for, say, the alley to be a consumption eating area, but not those streets unless there was a separate permit. So I see some concerns there because the law does require the municipality to have, you know, maintenance of the common area that protects the health and safety of the community. And I don't think that's obviously not well defined. So those things would have to be defined a little bit more clearly with the maintenance plan. Or if council wanted to do this and want to be more comfortable with it, then not include Eagle or Jefferson streets unless they're day permits or weekend permits, as Jefferson Street has right now, and cordon off those alley entrance points so vehicle travel would not go during those operations. So that's a concern I have, is, you know, people walking about in a sidewalk type of fashion where vehicles normally travel without having some kind of plan to protect those within that common area.
Dave,
Sure.
do you have any sense of how we would approach this in relation to other executive orders, particularly the most recent executive order from Whitmer that made it more restrictive around wearing masks in public places.
Yeah, well, the EO that's currently in effect, within 6 feet, even outside, masks are required. So how does that shell out? Well, who is also going to police that? So, a family in common in the same household, so to speak, can be within that 6 feet and not have to wear a mask, or people seated at dining tables, but merely walking about, those executive orders could have impact, certainly.
And Karen, did I hear you mention that someone from the DHS has been involved as well in the discussions?
Yes, that's correct. When we first started talking about this, and there was a poll that was sent out that had several different ideas, including utilizing the downtown street. One thing that we had thrown out there to the retailers and restaurants that MDOT supported was that we could, for example, close parking, make the pedestrian walkway where the parking street section was, and allow the main sidewalk to become the extended shop and restaurant eating area. Now that wasn't supported by the downtown businesses that probably had the least amount. I mean, it was somewhat supported. I should say about a third people were interested, a third were worried, and then a third were no's, but that's probably the least supported. But as part of those discussions, we also talked about using the parking lots. And I believe it was Tom that mentioned earlier, or maybe even Matt, that part of using the parking lots, the concern the health department had was that if there were dining tables, they wanted those assigned to a restaurant for sanitizing. So having them adjacent to the buildings was much more preferable because it would be easier for them to maintain those tasks. But yes, they were involved. They were supportive of using alleys, for example, and with that stipulation that they wanted sanitation requirements.
Yep, thank you. That's what I was looking for. I do think that I like this idea, Tom, of having a special council session that starts as a working session. I absolutely empathize with the downtown businesses and the challenges that you're having. I want to also hear, as part of the plan, how we're first and foremost making sure we're protecting public safety. So whether that's the aspect of, hey, you've now got lots of people who could congregate downtown, they could be walking around in alleys, which some of those are sort of blind alleys that people could be driving vehicles into. So how are we thinking about that? What's the police and law enforcement's position on this, and how can we get them comfortable? And then just from the perspective of the fact that we are in the midst of a pandemic, are we doing anything that is increasing the likelihood of, people getting sick and having, us creating an environment where it's not managed effectively, and suddenly Marshall, which we love so much, becomes a hot spot for a virus that causes lots of people to get sick or die. So I would love to get there, like we have done already, on creating the parking options downtown for takeout. I hope that the downtown businesses have seen that we're doing as much as we can, as quickly as we can, to try to get some aid to make the situation as sustainable as possible while prioritizing public health. I'd love to get there on this too, but for me to get there, I want to make sure I'm hearing an effective plan for how it would be managed.
And if Eric's saying that we could, have an idea of what that maintenance and management agreement would look like by Wednesday, if that was sent out to the council on Wednesday to review, would that give us enough time and notice for the special meeting on Thursday, Tom, possibly in the evening?
We have to give 18 hours notice for a special meeting, so we could post it tomorrow. Tricia could do that, and then we could do it Thursday. And then what I see the format of that meeting being is definitely we'll be getting the plan to staff as well as you, and as well to David, and then having David's comments, having Scott's or Josh's comments, and then also if either Karen or Matt or Amy, maybe by that point might know, will the 5 establishments, will they want to apply for that? That would be helpful also to see, who's in on the, who's willing to apply to liquor control. That should be easily done. So I would see the format, and then we would have the resolution, and then at that point you can tweak it to the be it season or a lot of things can be in the plan, but the actual district has to be pointed out. Eric, am I correct? And then the hours and stuff that can also be in the plan, and so those kind of things. So I don't know David's schedule or Scott's, but I think if you want to call a special meeting for Thursday, you can. I would recommend that you call it tonight. And we get it on record, and then we'll do the posting as necessary for Thursday, whatever time and location.
Okay.
Did you say Wednesday or Thursday?
Thursday.
And I know that some of our council members might not be in town. I would possibly like to meet in person if we could, again at Ketchum Park Pavilion or some spot like that, socially distanced, but we could also have whoever's not able to call in, or we can set up a Zoom session for them to join as well. I just think there's a lot of conversation that needs to be had, and it might be easier to do that in person.
I will not be able to be there in person. I'm wondering about the logistics of trying to have everybody sitting around the pavilion at Ketchum Park while being connected to Zoom.
We could possibly, depending on the number of people, we could use the training room and hook the laptop into the projector. So at least Michael could see everyone. We've done that. Or people could see Michael, actually.
Would that be comfortable for everyone?
Nick, you're on mute.
Nick, I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, I'm an outside girl. I mean, I can join via Zoom. That's fine.
Okay, so let's go ahead then and plan on either the training. Eric, are you saying the training room at the PSB?
No, at City Hall.
Okay.
Tom, you're muted too.
I'm thinking the training room at City Hall may not get the social distancing when you look. We've got 14, 15 people potentially who would be there. But I'm trying to think where we can get the connectivity for a Zoom.
They don't have that at the Ketchum Park?
Well, I'm just.
Could we check Merlick and see if their room would be available?
I was just going to suggest we can use the fire bay. It's connected to the city internet, yet we can open the doors, so it'll be similar to outside.
We just have to find a screen of some sort. What do we project?
Well, and a mechanism for those of us who are on the Zoom to hear who's speaking as well.
Yep. How about we work on that issue tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Figure something out.
That sounds good. When we post a notice of the meeting, we'll clarify whatever locations available, either the Merlick training room or PSB. It sounds like those two would be the easiest with technology. So
the downstairs at the Frank Center could be a possibility as well. It's an indoor space, but it's a bit bigger, so folks could spread out. So just as you're thinking about it, that's something to put in the mix.
The other thing that would be helpful to hear at the special session that I'm interested in is I know that there were some requirements attached to the Public Act that participants have, obviously they need to be licensed to be a participant, but then there was also sort of indications of how they would actually execute being part of it. And I haven't heard much of that yet. I'd like to hear how we're going to make sure that that's being considered. So I think I read someplace that it could potentially allow someone to buy alcohol at one place and then go to another place that does not serve alcohol and take it in with them. It would be good to just know exactly how this could show up and whether or not our businesses are ready to comply with those expectations.
Yeah, it's not, you definitely can't go into another establishment until the drink is finished. But I've never seen any restriction on going into a non-licensed establishment. So I will cover more of that.
All right, any other discussion at this time?
May I ask what time would you like to do this meeting, and then we can get the location, but I'm just wondering what time would you want to start?
I would prefer 7 p.m., the same as this council meeting.
Okay.
Work for everyone else.
I'm available.
7 works.
Yep, that works.
All right. So we will hear from Tom on that special meeting tomorrow morning. Tom, do we need a motion to table this until the special meeting?
I'm not sure if you need to table this. I think you just called special meeting. David, do you see any reason to table, or do they need to make any special motion tonight? Because we don't know the location, we just know the day and the time. Get unmute. You have to unmute. David, you have to unmute. We can't talk that way. I don't know what he's saying, so.
David, you're still muted. Could you repeat what you said?
His video looks frozen too.
Okay.
Can you type it into chat if you need to communicate with us, David?
This is like a seance.
All right.
Eric, is there something you can do to help unmute him?
No, I can mute people. I can stop video. I can ask, but when I have to unmute or I have to, there he is. He's moving again. I can't force an unmute, unfortunately.
I think.
Okay, because it sounds like the same problem Matt had earlier.
Yeah, I think he's frozen. So, Tom, if
He's
you're
back.
let's just go ahead and move on from here.
We'll just move on. We'll go ahead and get the meeting posted, and so Thursday night, 7 o'clock, location to be determined. We'll give it the best connectivity, and also what we may want to do is to have some better discussion. We may want to bring our laptops and be able, even though we're sitting in the room, we may want to use our cameras and mics off of our own laptops. But let us work on that, and somebody more techie than I will figure this out. So
Can I ask for one clarification? District, do you want to see different map proposals, like all of downtown, what we have now, and expanded north and south, Golden Block?
Eric, I think we can
Yeah,
talk through
I
the
definitely
location.
think that that's something that we need to review.
Well, I mean, having the map, I mean, we'll talk through whatever is the final area. I mean, I think we know pretty much our downtown. We can also, we could project from GIS, but I think it's, I think overall, I think we could work without having a whole stack of different blocks and maps.
Well, I'll just say my feeling is that if we're going to do this, there's no reason to exclude businesses. So let's be as inclusive as the law will allow, and that makes reasonable sense.
All right, thank you.
And is considering public safety.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your comments on that and the willingness to do this special meeting. I definitely feel that there's a lot that needs to be discussed. So moving on, we will go to public comment on non-agenda items. Anyone wishing to address the council may do so for a maximum of 5 minutes, stating their name and address for the record. Do we have anyone that would like to comment on non-agenda items this evening?
Barry Wayne Adams.
Okay, we'll start with Barry Wayne Adams. Whenever you're ready, Barry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. All right, I'll look at my clock. I got 5 minutes. First, I guess I have to voice my objection to the continued use of this Zoom format. It really doesn't facilitate the operations of democratic process. It creates a nice little virtual simulation of what government tries to be, but it has further separated the people from the government, and it does not allow full participation in what's going on in your decision-making process. I mean, I've been sitting here listening for 2.5 hours and maybe have only been able to hear intelligibly approximately 2/3 of what's being said. Also, it's disturbing, especially with supposed attorneys present, to refer to executive orders as being laws. They're not laws. They are expressions of military authority by the governor operating as commander-in-chief. Comes from Article 5, Section 12 of the Michigan Constitution, 1963. And her statutory manifestation of that is MCL 10.31. But an executive order is not a law. The governor is not a legislator. The legislature makes the laws in this state. And it's amazing how that fundamental fact that we are now being directed by military authority, overarching military authority, is not of any serious concern amongst the officials who have taken an oath of office to support and uphold the Constitution. We're already seeing equivocation in the use of these executive orders. The Wisconsin Supreme Court has overturned the governor's executive orders there, saying they are unenforceable. The governor of Georgia, who obviously has some sense of responsibility about his obligations to his oath of office, has overarchingly rescinded any attempt by different municipalities to impose a mask requirement. And really, is the mask requirement something that is that necessary anymore, particularly when Michigan now is dwindling down. I think the yesterday's death toll was 7 deaths, and that's a few of them having found from previous medical records. The same kind of numbers padding that they did during the Vietnam War. where you'd have 13 Americans die and 1,700 Viet Cong die. They're fudging the numbers. They're giving us misinformation on this coronavirus. They over-exaggerated its lethality, and then down the line tried to tell us that 10 to 20 times more people have the thing and they don't even know it and are unaffected by it. When you shine the spotlight on a certain group of people who are severely medically compromised and then take the statistics from that group, yeah, it's a really dangerous disease. But when you look over all the population, it's not a very dangerous disease at all. And we should not all have to pay the price at the expense of our liberty because of what ends up being the long-term health irresponsibility of some people. Probably didn't eat too good of a diet during their life and got chronic degenerative disease, and the coronavirus went crazy on them. But what you should really be thinking about, instead of talking about all these stopgap measures, essentially putting Band-Aids on cancer tumors, there's 51 million people unemployed right now, and their benefits are just about to run out. When that happens, there's going to be a huge homeless problem, and the problems you're going to be discussing are not going to have to deal with if you can drink, carry a beer up and down the alley or sit out at a table outside. Things are going to be getting serious here, and you people should be taking in consideration what might be coming down the line instead of just playing along with the program.
Great, thank
Okay,
you.
remember your oath of office.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
All right, any other comments on non-agenda items this evening? Give it a few more seconds here.
I don't see any, Mr. Mayor.
All right, seeing none, we will move on to council and manager communications. Member McNeil.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Member Underhill.
Nothing for me either.
Thank you. Member Wolfersberger.
I don't have anything tonight. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Member Gates.
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Metzger.
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you. Member Traver.
Nothing. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Tracy, anything this evening?
I don't have anything.
Thank you. Manager Tarkowitz.
Nothing tonight.
All right. Well, I appreciate everyone's time this evening. And we will see everyone on this upcoming Thursday for our special meeting. And I will call this meeting adjourned. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.